Joining me for this segment, this gentleman I have interviewed for a number of different reasons over the years, whether it was a humanitarian trip to Uganda to help their legal system, to the stewardship of his young son at the time, who wanted to find a way to help those less fortunate. He has been a guest on here from time to time with me. I'm talking about Mr. Chris DiOrio, who has undertaken yet another another chapter in his lengthy story. Chris, welcome to the program, and thank you for coming on to share the newest chapter. Your run, your work towards running the upcoming Boston Marathon.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Like Rosanna Dana says, it's always something. I am running the Boston Marathon coming up in October. Thankfully, this year it's in October as opposed to April. It's changed the training structure and things, but I'm lucky to be out there and be a part of it.
What made you decide one day? And because myself, it's one of those bucket list items that if there's something that I do, I want to write a book. Yeah. I want to run a marathon. I want to train for it, and I want to conquer it. It doesn't matter if it takes me 7 hours, 5 hours, or a day and a half. I'm going to do it.
Absolutely. This is, I said to myself, I'm 54 years old. And I had said years ago, when I'm 50, I'd love to be able to run a marathon. I didn't say Boston, just I would like to be able to run a marathon, just a little, as you said, a bucket list kind of thing. But 50 rolls around and I just couldn't do it. And part of the reason that I couldn't do it is I physically could not do it. You've seen me in other iterations of myself. And, when I was running for political office a few years back, I was towing the line at about 400 pounds. And just not fit with the diabetes that came on and all of the other stuff that goes along with it. It was a struggle to get up and down the stairs and carry, at that point, my little 2-year-old son up and down the stairs. And my life had to change. And so just about 2 years ago, now it'll be 2 years in November, I had what they refer to as a vertical sleeve gastrectomy. That's where they remove, by arthroscopic surgery, they remove 85% of your stomach. And it resulted it did its job. It resulted in a drastic weight loss. I'm certainly by no means, Brad Pitt svelte in Once Upon a Time in America. But I'm just about a little under 270 right now. The knee pains are gone. I'm physically stronger. The diabetes went away in a week. One of the magic things about that kind of surgery is if you're diabetic, diabetes disappears. It takes about 5 to 7 days, sometimes a little longer, but all of a sudden you're no longer diabetic, which then allowed me to do other things like this. And so I promised myself that get through the surgery, get yourself right, and I'm putting the marathon on board. It's back in play. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do Boston. And thankfully this year, for the first time, the 125th running of the Boston Marathon, they're allowing it to be run what they refer to as virtually. There are people who are running on Marathon Monday, who are qualifiers, and they've limited it to about 10 to 15,000 actual runners on the day. But there are folks all around the world that will be running the marathon on their own courses. I'm choosing to run the actual marathon course, and I'm going to be running on October 9th. But anybody who runs the marathon distance from October 8th through October 11th, you're going to get yourself a unicorn medal. I've joined a bunch of groups that are marathon support groups and other runners, and it's just absolutely staggering the number of people out there. And there are folks from Scotland. I'm following this guy from Afghanistan who is getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning over there because of the intense heat, so that he can do, 25 and 30K runs before the sun comes up and it turns and suddenly is 95 degrees. And here's this guy wearing a bright yellow neon vest running through the streets of Afghanistan because he wants his unicorn medal. It's just, and folks in Texas and all over the country and all around the world are going to celebrate this 125th running of the marathon, either virtually out there or like I am and a few thousand of my new closest friends on the Boston Marathon course, starting in Hopkinton and finishing up, down Boylston Street.
At any point in time in your life, have you been somebody who runs? Because I feel that running is kind of like a way of life. I know folks that's what they enjoy doing. They got to get up at the crack of dawn and they got to go out and do a couple of miles. And heck, when they get home from work, I'm going to throw my shoes on. I'm going to go out for another mile. Is that something that you've done in the past?
I had run. I played football. And so you run, and baseball. My father was a baseball coach, and I learned to run the hills. So there's always running involved. But playing football for me, if I could run 10 yards, I'm fine. I don't have to chase anybody. As an offensive lineman, all I've got to do is make my block and move them. I don't really have to run after anybody. Pull, you run a pulling play for a sweep or something like that, or maybe pull down the line for a counter play. But that's just a few yards. I didn't have to run distances ever. Years ago, I ran a 5K, and it was just a nightmare. I just wanted to do it. And then friends were running. There's a 5K that they run at Gillette Stadium called the Finish at the 50. And I thought that was fun and unique. And I'm up at that point about 350 pounds, and I decided to run that. And you have to run up the ramps through the stadium. So you run around the footprint of the stadium and then run into the stadium up the ramps. And at multiple points on the ramps, I was sure I was going to die. But just at a point where I'm pulling myself up the ramp with the rail. And then thankfully gravity took over when I came down. And that was fun, but I ran a 5K in about an hour, which is like walking pace, but because the hills or the ramps, but that was it. It's not something that I said to myself, I'm going to go do this every day. And then last year in June is when I started really thinking about, I'm going to run. This is going to become something that I do. And I trained for a 5K and got that out of the way. And then I trained for my first 10K, which I did on the marathon route. I started on Heartbreak Hill and went up and over, and with a friend of mine, David, and we both ran. We ran for Dana-Farber, and ran my first 10K on the course. And it was at that moment when I crossed the line, and that iconic strip in the middle of Boylston Street, and I crossed it, and it hit me right then. I can do this. I can add on this because I'm not dead, and I can physically get myself to the point where I can train to do it. And so that's from that point in October of last year, when I ran my first 10K, I've built myself up to the point now where physically I can do it. Mentally, I'm getting myself to the headspace where I can do it. And then we'll see what happens. We've got a few weeks to go.
You're just tuning in. We're speaking with Chris DiOrio. Chris is getting ready, been training for the 125th running of the Boston Marathon. As he, if you're just tuning in, you miss him talking about you could do it virtually. He's choosing to run that 26.2 mile course. He's going to do it. What has I would think that there have been ups and downs, just like the marathon course, with you training and doing this, whether it's detractors, whether it's the mental, trying to prepare yourself. While physically you're probably getting there, there's also a mental part to it as well. Am I right?
Yeah. I'm thankful. I'm running with the Mass General Hospital team. and running it with their pediatric oncology clinic team. So funds that I raise for this, I'm what they call a charity bib runner. So you have a certain fundraising requirement as a charity bib runner, and you have to do that. But one of the real blessings of it is they've contracted with marathon coaches. The owner of Heartbreak Hill Running Company, who's a 6 or 7 time marathoner himself, and who employs marathon runners to run. He's running our training program. And so we get weekly updates, and we're able to, have video training and actual physical training where we go and run the course distances and learn the ups and downs of how the course is going to run. And part of that is smart training, that if you don't feel it, don't blow through it. Don't feel like you have to run through it. If the training calls for 6 or 7 miles and you physically can't get there, pull back or slow down, or don't be afraid to walk a couple 100 meters before you start up again. So the physical aspect is there, and as long as I stick with the training, stay with the program, that's all I've been hearing. The mental stuff is something different. A very good friend of mine who Naval Academy graduate, ran Boston once, ran the Marine Corps marathon once, which is a nightmare as I understand it. Imagine a bunch of Marines running a marathon, and that the course that would be. It's kind of like 26 miles of Spartan. But he said to me, and he's known me since I was a kid. We went to high school together. And he said, you know as well as I do that regardless of the physical aspect and what it's going to take out of you, it's going to hurt. But this is just as much about your heart and your mind as it is about your legs. And you have to have the desire to push through it. And that it has been kind of a struggle. There, you're fundraising out there and you make public posts about what you're doing. You want people to know so that they can, send $10, $20 in or something like, that. And you make a public post and people, there are trolls out there. They're going to take shots. There are folks who actually are, who allegedly run marathons. I post my times when I do things, and he took a chance to send me a message, out of the clear blue, said, why do you post your times? I could walk that fast. Well, maybe you can walk 12 and a half minutes a mile. Maybe you can't. I don't know. I don't know how fast Olympic walkers walk. But come on out and run it with me. If you can walk it as fast as I can run it, where are you? Why aren't you? What are you doing other than chirping away at me? It's fine to shoot at someone that's trying to do something that benefits others, and there's no benefit in that. And frankly, that's I'm a coach's kid. That's fuel for the fire. That just it keeps me up. It keeps me driven. It's something that's going to keep me moving forward. That I know that folks out there. I'm a relatively public person. I put myself out there. I take positions on issues, and people don't like the positions I take, and so they're going to take shots. And I know that that's part of me. And now they're if they're going to take shots at this because of so be it. But this is all what drives me, and every step I take is one more step toward doing something that, frankly, 99% of the world thinks it's crazy. And that's because only 1% of the population has ever done what I'm trying to do and what others have done. Marathon running is a unique club, and I'm just trying to be a member. However fast it takes me to, I'm going to get there on my own pace. I had somebody else, the other day say to me that, there is no such thing as a runner's pace. A runner's pace is however you run. And, regardless of whether it takes you, I've got friends who are running it at a 9-minute pace. I've got friends who are running it at 10 or 11 minute, a 10 or 11 minute mile. I'm, hovering around 12. I want to be comfortable. I don't want to hurt myself. I want to finish. It's not about finish times. It's about finish lines. And that's what I'm looking for. Start in Hopkinton, where it all goes, and make my right on Hereford, my left on Boylston, and clock it in regardless of what the time is.
Has this been a learning process for you? What are some of the things that you have learned along the way, not only about what you're doing, but maybe about yourself, maybe some of the important keys that you're going to need to keep in mind the day of the race?
Well, a lot of it is, and I've talked with friends who are ultra, it's like this community is out there. And I've made a connection with a wonderful person in South Carolina by the name of Lindsay Hopper. And she was an NCAA track star and contracted alopecia. And she is now completely bald. And she has been running, as an icon for her community. And so I've made a connection with her from thousands of miles away, and talking with her. And we had a discussion yesterday, and I'd said, I need to know from you how you mentally approach things, because that's physically my body is going to do what it does, and it's just driving. But the mental part is what's going to get me over the line. And how do you break a race down? Do you just turn on the music and let it go and don't think about it? Do you, and the best advice from her, and she echoed things that I had heard from other folks, is something that I've been teaching my kids. And now I get to apply it to myself. An old lesson when you think about the world, surrounding you and so many things coming at you. And I tell it, my father used to say it to me. I say it to my kids. And then I saw Mel Gibson say it in The Patriot. And I didn't read that. I'm sure somebody said it years before, and that's why, but aim small, miss small. That if you don't try, if you just focus on a small task, one thing at a time, and get that done, and then move on to the next small task, then sooner or later, you've got a bunch of small tasks behind you. Instead of trying to do everything at once and try to hit the big target, if you aim small and miss, you're still going to hit something. As opposed to, so take care of one thing at a time, compartmentalize. So looking at a race and thinking about mentally how to do it, it's not thinking about, oh God, I've got 25 miles left to go. I've got 24 miles left to go. I just knocked out 2 miles. And break things down into small parts. Okay, another half mile off I'm just chopping it off and getting it done and breaking it down into small pieces. Here's it 3 miles at a time. Just I can do 3 miles right now and not think too much about it. So all I've got to do is 8 of those, and then I'm home. I'm almost home free, and just break it down into small parts. It's a good life lesson. And until I started hearing it from other people, and then, I've been saying this to my kids for years, and now I get to say it to myself. Focus on small things, knock them out, get them done, and then move on to the next small thing. So in this race, mentally, take care of the first mile. Any marathon runner, regardless of their salt, will tell you mile 1 sucks. Everything else, but the first mile is you are waking up your body, and your body is really. 5 o'clock this morning, I was out running, and I've been running for weeks and for months now. And mile 1 sucks. It always does. And then you get through it and you move on. So same thing here. Get through 1 mile, and then the next one comes, and just keep knocking things down. And sooner or later, you're almost home free.
I think it's worth noting, we talked a few minutes ago about some of the detractors and some of the folks who want to be negative. But also you're someone who I feel that you thrive on inspiring, and you thrive on being the best parental unit you can be, and giving little lessons to your children, all your children, all different ages.
Yeah.
How much of an inspiration do you feel that you are or going to be to your own children?
I'll tell you, I have my two older kids. Isabella is 20 now. She's, she's out in Minnesota in college. She, took some time off for herself, and now she's out in Minnesota at college. Dominic just turned 18. You met him when he was 12 when we started Dom's Dimes, and he's 18, and we're still doing it. We were out, giving out socks in Perkins Park in Brockton just this past weekend. It's still an active concern because that's what's important to him. But I have my little guy now, who's Peter, who's 5, and part of the training for me is hills. You've got to do the hill training, and I have a hill right outside my house. It's perfect. It's a quarter of a mile or so from the bottom to the top.
Yep.
And Peter will say to me, can I run with you? This little 5-year-old guy, he's out there running with me. And so we walk down to the bottom of the hill, stretch out. It's funny. He's out there stretching. He's watching. He's stretching his legs, and he's, doing everything. And then we start up the hill and we're running, and I'm just pacing myself. I'm not sprinting up a hill. It's dumb. One of the rules is let the hill come to you. So just take your steps, quick, light steps, and just let the hill come to you. And he's running like a kid, and he's ahead of me. And so he turns back to me and yells, "I will train you, Dada! I will train you!" And he's pushing me, which I thought was phenomenal. I apologize for the incessant dog barking. So sorry, I'm going to move out of this location and move into a quieter space.
Okay. And if you are just tuning in, we are speaking with Chris DiOrio. Chris is a gentleman who is preparing for a run. He's going to be participating in the 125th running of the Boston Marathon. And he's kind of giving us the tit for tat from, getting himself into better health to where, he's training himself not only physically, but mentally. And we've kind of, we're right now kind of talking a little bit about the inspiration and how interesting it is, as though your son sounds like he's taking on the role of your dad.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm a coach's kid. My father's voice follows me. And he was a butt kicker kind of coach. And so, to have a little bit of that come through with my kids, with my little guy who, he gets to see me do something. He gets to be part of it. You want to, as often as you can, including your kids in the things that you are doing, instead of saying you can't do this. I don't want you to do this. You can tell them when something's dangerous. You can tell them when something, you may not want them to be involved, but explain why. But for something like this, I want him to do it. I did that I mentioned earlier about that running that, finish at the 50. I ran it again a couple of weeks ago. And he wanted to, they have a 50-yard kids fun run, and he wanted to run. So I signed him up. Go run 50 yards. And he was out there running with Dada, and they gave him a medal. And he, at the end, when I finished, they gave me my medal for finishing at the 50. And he said, "You got a medal just like me." And he was included, and he gets to do something fun with his dad. And as we walked out of the stadium, my wife turns to me and says, "You know what? I'm running this with you next year." And I'll push my daughter. She's 2. She'll be 3 then. I'll push her in a carriage. I saw parents pushing their daughters in carriages last time. I'll push her. We'll all do it. The more you can include and show them something, and show them especially why you're doing something. He sees my shirt. I'm running for Mass General Hospital, and he sees that. I want him to know why. We delivered socks out to, like I said, to Perkins Park the other day, and he wanted to know why. And I said, well, these folks are displaced. They have to live in the park. They live under a tree. They sleep on the ground. And we're helping. And catch them early. Put it in them now, so that they can make these decisions for themselves and make right decisions to put others above self as often as possible.
Sometimes knowledge.
That's it. You catch them now, and then let them make their own decisions, but give them the proper tools by which to make the right decision.
As we got a few minutes left here in our conversation. This is your opportunity to ask folks to support your cause, the Run for MGH, how they can do that, and maybe even any other kind of support that they can offer that will propel you through those 26 miles.
Well, I'll tell you if you go to the Mass General is using a website called Given Gain, GIVENGAIN, givengain.com. If you go to that website and you search my name, Chris DiOrio, that's DIORIO, you'll find it. I would give you the URL, but it's way too long to read it out. But if you just go to givengain.com and look up Chris DiOrio, you will find my fundraising campaign. We had a big raffle that we're running, that we ran previously. We're raffling off tickets to the return of Tom Brady to Foxborough to play the Patriots, and that was a big fundraiser. But any support that you can give at the site, that helps out the Mass General Hospital Pediatric Oncology Clinic. This year, it's estimated that about 10 to 11,000 kids will be donated with some type of blood or oncological problem. And about 15% of those kids will die of the disease. It is the number one disease killer of children in the United States. And Mass General has a wonderful multidimensional team that deals with these kids from infancy all the way up through age 16. It's a tremendous program that deserves people's attention. So that's why I'm running. I'm running in the name of a young lady named Madison McCoy. Maddie McCoy suffered from a disease called rhabdomyosarcoma, a deep brain and soft tissue cancer. She died at age 11, but never let the disease define her. She continued to compete gymnastics and performing and things of that nature. And I've known her mother for years, and to see the suffering and to lose a child, you should never bury a child. And to see that and to know that other parents are going through this, and me now with my young ones and my older ones, it struck me. And so I wanted to run for her. So that's where all of this is going. Go to the website, you make a donation. If you donate $25 or more, I'm letting people pick a song to put on my marathon playlist. And folks out there who know, you can choose something inspirational. A lot of folks do, but folks who know me know that I have some musical, anti-proclivities. Singers I don't like, kinds of music I don't like, and I'm not a Disney guy. So my best man at my first wedding, guy I've known since I was a freshman in high school, made me put for a sizable donation. But part of my marathon playlist will now include a 17-minute version of "It's a Small World After All." So all I'm thinking is I'm going to hit Heartbreak Hill. I'm going to start to make that last big push, and all of a sudden that "It's a Small World After All" is going to come on. And my brain will explode, and they will find me somewhere near Boston College, just lying in a fetal heap. I got, Rebecca Black and Carly Rae Jepsen. People are just really, my wife, who knew that there was a musical for Silence of the Lambs? She did. And so she put a song from the Silence musical on my playlist. And again, I'll take your money. Mass General is going to love this, but if you want to make me hate my run, by all means, chip in $25 and put a song on there that absolutely will blow my ears out. I'll take it. It's all part of the mental training. It's fighting through the sounds in my head, as well as the pain in the feet and the legs and the thighs and the hips and everything else that goes along with it.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us today to tell us your story, kind of give us the prequel, the backstory to the run, and hopefully we can do something after you have conquered Heartbreak Hill and the 26.2 mile course, and even maybe we lay the groundwork for a Chris DiOrio Part 2 with the misses in tow.
Absolutely. I bought my, the celebration jacket. I bought that a few months ago. It's been sitting in a drawer, still in the original wrapper, that the blue marathon finisher jacket. And, hopefully the next time we talk, I'll have my jacket on with my unicorn right around my neck.
Well, again, we want to thank you for joining us and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. Thank you always.
And we want to thank you, the viewing audience at home. Thank you so much for tuning in to programs like CrossTalk. Until next time, have a great day.